You get your baby in the high chair. He's staring at you like, what am I doing here? Why are you making such a big deal of this? For some reason you're really nervous and your heart is racing. What's the big deal? We eat food every day. Feeding your baby should be straightforward, right? Insert food in baby's mouth. Baby swallows. Casey Wah, OT here. Welcome, welcome. Today we are talking about ways to de-stress some of the decisions you make before you start feeding your baby solids. We're going to look at how to recognize the difference between a gag and a true choking incident. And also, if you've already started feeding your baby solids, been there, done that, you'll still learn some tips on how to make the most out of your mealtime with your baby while also keeping that big picture in mind. Moving to solid foods, whether it's purees or straight to table foods, is a big deal for your baby, but it's also a big deal for you. If you are breastfeeding, this is a major step toward your baby not needing you in that same way anymore. And if you're bottle feeding, it's a first big step towards moving away from that one-on-one time multiple times a day, and just that reliance on you changes. So it's not just baby learns a new skill, you have a different responsibility, and there's decisions that you have to make. Purees versus table foods. Where do I put my baby when I want to eat them? What do we start with? How do we transition to a new food? There's a lot that goes into it, and we're going to tackle all of those things today. Now, I'm going to be honest with you guys. I am a living, breathing example of the fact that even people who know what they're doing still have picky eaters. My son is 3.5, and I had all these plans in the world of how I was gonna introduce all these foods. He was gonna love vegetables and eat them every day. You know that saying, man plans, God laughs. Well, he laughed. It must have been really funny. So this is not a you have to do it this way and what you're doing is wrong video. That's not what we're here for. I am going to give you some tips on things I have learned from my own experience, but also from an OT perspective, because OTs are the ones who often work with kids who have sensory feeding issues, who can't move food well in their mouth, so they're not transitioning to new foods. So I'm gonna keep that perspective to give you advice, but know that every child is different, and maybe some things I say work for you and some things don't. And I will not take that personally. This video has a lot of information in it. You might need to watch it a couple of times to make sure you get all the good stuff. Make sure you subscribe and hit the bell so you know when new videos come out, and also give it a thumbs up if you like it. Let's take a look at first the difference between truly choking and gagging. Right off the bat, we're gonna address choking. Choking is a real risk. I don't want this to seem like I'm brushing it off as a non-issue. As a parent, when you're feeding your child, or even when they're just playing, choking is a risk, and you need to know what you're going to do if that happens. So choking is when the airway is completely or almost completely blocked off. I personally recommend, if you are pregnant or if you've already had your child and you haven't done this already, get a CPR and first aid training. There are a lot of fire departments or EMS services that will even do that for free for expecting or new parents, because they see the value in teaching parents on how to respond appropriately if their child actually is choking. I am not a CPR instructor, so I will not go into what to do specifically if your child is choking, but I do have one major piece of advice. If your child is choking, do not try to swipe the food or object out of their mouth with your finger. I personally have worked with a little dude who his caregiver did that and unintentionally pushed the object further down and caused more extensive damage because he was deprived of oxygen for a longer period of time. So that might be your first instinct to try to get it out, but please do not do that. Don't try to get it out of their mouth, because you risk pushing it further down, which is obviously not what you want to do. So send a comment down below if you already have CPR or first aid training. Good for you. Or if you plan on doing that and looking up where you can get it as soon as this video is over, let me know. With that being said, some parents mistake a gag for a choking incident. So what is a gag? A gag is your body's reflexive, protective response to getting something out of the mouth that they feel threatened by. It's stimulated by touching parts of your tongue or the back of your throat or the soft part on the top of your mouth. When you touch certain parts of your mouth, your body says, I don't like that, that's threatening, and tries to push it out of the mouth. Usually a gag happens when you introduce a new food or a new texture, if a baby isn't developmentally ready for a food to be presented, or if they're playing and they're moving something around in their mouth and they get it a little bit too far back, they will gag. So it's important, it is protective. So logically thinking, when you introduce new foods, a baby is going to gag. Their body is on high alert, it's something new. They might be thinking, I don't like this, what is that? Get it out. So they gag and push it out of their mouth. Gags are good and natural, but obviously we don't like them. They don't feel good. Baby doesn't like them. But how you respond if you see your child gagging is going to impact how your child responds to that. And we'll get into that later in this video when we talk about some mealtime tips. First, we're gonna look at 3 of the big decisions you have to make before you start even feeding your child solid foods. And for the purposes of this video, solids refers to both purees from a spoon or if you're going the route of going to table foods. So either one, we're just gonna call it solid food. Your first decision is when you're gonna start feeding your baby, and kind of going into that is the why. Some pediatricians say you can start giving your 4-month-old rice cereal, and this is a no judgment zone. If that is something that you decide to do, great. I just encourage you to look at your why and see if you are getting the results that you want. If you are hoping that giving your baby some spoonfuls of rice cereal will help them sleep through the night, I'm sorry, that's a myth, and you will probably get frustrated. Some babies are seriously excited to try those few spoonfuls. My niece was that way. She loved to get those like 2 teaspoons of rice cereal every night, and her parents loved to have that time. It was fun for them. They all enjoyed it. Either way, there really is no real need to start feeding that early. Just because you can doesn't mean you need to. If you don't feel like your baby is ready at 4 months, that's fine. I'm gonna talk next about some readiness signs that you can look for to know if your baby is actually ready. From a developmental standpoint, a good way to know if your baby is ready to eat, there's 2 major signs to look for. Number 1 is they're able to sit by themselves. So yeah, maybe some 5 months old can do that and they are ready. Maybe your baby is 7 months old and that's fine. Why am I saying that they should be able to sit by themselves? Feeding is not as simple as insert food, baby swallows. There is a ton of stuff that your baby has to regulate and be able to do before they can be happy and successful at eating. The body's number 1 priority at all times, forever, is breathing. What affects your ability to breathe is your posture and also your alertness. Obviously, if baby is like super tired, that's not a good time to feed them, but posture is what I'm gonna talk a little bit more about here. A blobby baby who isn't able to hold themselves up doesn't have a strong core. So no, your baby doesn't have a 6-pack, but these muscles around their belly and their back are really important in keeping everything in line. So your throat, when the food comes down, and all those inner organs have to be well supported in order to have a successful meal. So let's think about a little baby who's 4 months old, can't sit by themselves. You put them in that high chair and they look like a tiny bean. They're sitting to the side, their head's probably like this. You give them a spoon. Look at my neck and my body. I'm not in line. This baby who would be able to sit up by themselves, you put them in the high chair. They are sturdy, throat is above the belly, you're ready to go. So posture, control, helps baby be more ready to eat because they are more stable and supporting everything that needs to be in line. The second readiness sign is if your baby is showing like intense interest in you when you're eating, if you have them on your lap and they're grabbing food off of your plate, trying to put it in their mouth, if they're like opening their mouth as you eat, hello, they're saying, I want some of that and I am ready. The second decision you have to make once you know when you're gonna start is where you're going to feed your baby. A high chair is a really important purchase to make, and unfortunately a lot of the high chairs that are out there don't have a really integral piece that is gonna be like, oh, I never thought of that, and I can't wait to share it with you. So, have you ever sat on a bar stool and your feet just dangled? What do? You prop them up on the wall in front of you, you wrap your legs around the stool legs things, or you look for a ledge to put it on, because dangling feet feels weird. It just does. So imagine a baby who's never done this before. You're putting stuff in their mouth and they don't have anywhere to put their feet. You need your feet to eat. If you haven't bought a high chair yet, look for one that has an adjustable footrest. Now, the really tiny little beans, their feet aren't gonna be over the end to have anywhere to put their feet just yet, but a lot of times you'll see them stick their feet on the tray and like push against the tray because they're looking for something to ground them. So if you already have a high chair and it doesn't have an adjustable, movable, like footrest, that's okay. You can be creative and trying to figure out something that you could put there, whether it's a stack of books or you put a pool noodle or something that they can push their feet on. Because again, think about your own experience. When you sit on something and your feet hang, it feels weird. So your baby is just learning something. They have to focus on this and getting the food down. They shouldn't be worried about what their feet are doing. So give them something to support their feet. You need your feet to eat. We've covered the when we're gonna eat, we've covered the where we're gonna eat, so now let's look at what we are going to eat. Like I said before, solid food is purees or table foods. Let me know in the comment if you're doing spoon feeding, if you're going straight to table food, where you are in your journey, let me know. If you're interested in trying baby-led weaning, which is an approach that you can take to go right to table foods, not doing spoon-fed purees, I'm linking the book that I used that was really helpful in guiding what foods to give first, when to up the challenge, and some recipes. It's really good. So if you're interested in that and want to learn more about it, look at that book, order it, it's worth it. It was really, really helpful. Whichever way you go, or if you do a combination of both, that is totally up to you. That is your comfort level, what you want to do, and don't let anybody push you one way or the other. Do some research and look at which one you think matches with your values and how you want to interact with food and with your baby. I'm not here to tell you one is better than the other. This is your decision. And again, a lot of people say baby-led weaning makes your child not picky. You won't have a picky eater if you do that. I've got one and we did baby-led weaning, but I do think it's a great approach. So if you don't know about it, check it out and see if it's something that's like, oh, that sounds kind of cool. Because there is a lot to learn about what foods to present and when it comes to that. So if you are going in blind, it's not going to go well and it could be potentially unsafe. So check out the book or other resources. There's a ton online to read about baby-led weaning and going right to table food. So do some research and make an informed decision. You're the parent, whatever you feel comfortable with, you go for it. Those 3 decisions are made. You're ready to go. If you've already started feeding, these tips are gonna be for you too. So these are mealtime tips to help you just have a calm, collected, successful mealtime with your baby and ultimately with your family down the road. Tip number 1, when it comes to feeding your baby, your personal attitude and demeanor is so important. If you go into mealtime stressed or concerned or apathetic, not focusing on your baby, it's going to affect how they respond. Babies are so smart. They are watching you to see how you are responding. Like I said way at the beginning, you put the baby in the high chair, they've never been there before. They're watching you to see like, okay, what's the deal here? Why is this, what is happening? So however you come to mealtime, if you're stressed and anxious and worried about choking or worried about what am I doing, how fast do I do it, all of this stuff, your baby is going to see that and they're gonna respond in a similar way. If you go in calm, smile on your face, baby's gonna see, okay, mom or dad is good with this, I trust them, we can do this together. Whatever you need to do to get yourself in a good headspace going into mealtime, please do it. And hopefully this will help. Any mealtime before 12 months, the goal is experience and learning. It is not about quantity. We are not looking at calories and how many jars or how many pieces of food this baby eats every day. Feeding under 12 months is experience. They are learning. If you look at it from that perspective, then that relieves a ton of that stress about how much, how often. They ate a whole jar yesterday and today they're eating one bite. That's okay. It is all about learning. Tip number 2, how do you respond to your baby gagging? There are 2 ways you could go about this. Baby is eating, baby gags. You could jump and lunge towards your baby, making sure that they're okay, making the baby think, oh, this is serious, what just happened? I don't know, what do I do? Or you could say something like, that was a big taste. Ooh, wow, that felt different, didn't it? It's okay, let's try another bite. Anything that acknowledges, yeah, I saw that and it probably didn't feel good, but look, you're okay, I'm here, you're okay, let's try again. However, if you go to give another bite and they are not interested at that time because they're still trying to figure out what just happened, that's okay. Try it again the next day. Don't force it, but make sure you do try it again the next day so they can practice again. You respond the same way and they see again, okay, this is getting easier. Mom or dad is still here. I'm all right. We can do this. What can you do outside of mealtime to help your baby desensitize their gag? Offer them things to play with that they can put in their mouth, because playing is the most obvious and helpful way for babies to learn how things feel and how to move their tongue around. So when babies are playing with something like a teether or something that's kind of stick-shaped, they might munch on it and maybe they'll move it over their tongue and that doesn't feel good, get it out of there. But they're learning while they're holding something how to move food eventually, move a toy around, but they're learning how to move their tongue too. So munching on things, even though they don't have any teeth and they're not biting anything off, munching on their gum line helps their tongue start to move over and feel it. Brush your teeth next time. Feel your tongue, follow your toothbrush around, because your tongue is trying to figure out what's in there. Is it safe? Okay, cool. So munching and playing on things that are safe for them that they can hold and they're not gonna bite off helps them move their tongue and it will help them desensitize their gag. As an infant, your gag is really far forward on your tongue. So for instance, if they put a toy in their mouth for the first time and it just touches maybe like here, they might gag. But as they do it more and more, the gag moves back in their mouth to where it is as an adult or even as a child. The gag moves back the more that they practice and play and mouth things, even before they get to eating. So if your baby hasn't even started food yet, but they were not bringing toys to their mouth, they were not playing with things around their mouth, they're gonna have a really hard time transitioning to food. So if you are not having any success with food, think about whether your baby was a mouther. Did they bring things to their mouth? If they didn't, that's where you need to start, not at food. Start with toys and encouraging them, helping them start to bring things to their mouth so they can feel it and start to desensitize this area. Before we move on to the next tip, we'll do a couple of red flags when it comes to gagging. If your infant is gagging on breast milk or a bottle. That isn't something that you see very often. So there may be something called a tongue tie when their tongue is tethered to the bottom of their mouth, so they can't move it well, which is causing them to gag. Or they might be having too fast of a flow. Maybe the nipple isn't right for them. So if your infant is gagging, talk to your doctor or lactation consultant, because they might want to check for a tongue tie or see if something else is going on. Another red flag would be a missing or delayed gag response. So a gag is protective. So if you don't have one, you're at risk of food or drink going down your throat and into your lungs. So this doesn't happen often, and it is usually related to an underlying neurological issue. So if your baby does not have a gag response, that is serious and you need to talk to a professional. Moving on from gagging, tip number 3, eat with your baby. Mealtimes are social. So even if you're just having a snack or eating an apple or eating what you're giving them, showing them how you interact with food, doing it in a positive way will go a far, far way when you've got a cranky 3, 6, 12-year-old who tells you they don't want to eat what you're giving them. If you start out early with meal times being a family affair and everyone sitting down and eating together, you will see a ton of benefits, not just from variety's sake of kids eating or trying different things, but also just setting that time that we do this as a family. And there are studies that show that families that eat together have healthy conversations. They're able to talk about things more. And who doesn't want that? So yeah, your baby is only eating smashed peas right now, and maybe you don't want to eat smashed peas, but grab an apple, something to start that association that mealtime is social and it's a family thing. The last thing I want to talk about is tips specific to spoon feeding, or one tip specific to table foods. So we'll start with a spoon. If you're feeding your baby from a spoon, your pace is important. Have you ever eaten at a table with lots of people and you're all having the same meal, but the guy next to you on this side has finished his entire meal and the lady next to you on this side hasn't even finished her salad? People have their own unique paces of how fast they want to eat, and you have to be aware that your baby has their own pace too. So how do you know what your baby's pace is? Focus on when they show you that they are ready for the next bite. That trust between when you're gonna put something in their mouth is very, very important, and you don't wanna break that by trying to go as fast as you can and shoving it in when they're not ready for it. And also, if you're too slow and baby is looking for more, they're gonna lose interest and probably start to show some behaviors by throwing something, or like, hey mom, look at me, I'm gonna put my food in my hair. What you don't want to do is surprise them with a spoon when they aren't looking at you, or be ready with the next spoon as soon as they swallow and you get it in there. That is too fast. On the flip side, if baby is sitting there leaning forward, mouth is open, and you're kind of scraping, trying to get all of the extra bites or wiping off the tray, that is too slow for your baby. You need to be watching for when your baby is actually looking at you. You might need to tap the tray or give them some kind of cue. Bite. They look at you. They should open their mouth before the spoon goes in. If they're not opening their mouth, they're not ready for the bite. Dial into what your baby is telling you and make mealtime a bonding time. Just because you're not bottle feeding or breastfeeding anymore doesn't mean mealtime isn't a special time between parent and baby. I know this kind of contradicts the last cue that I gave about eating as a family, but once you get a hang of it, it will be easier. So again, quantity is not the goal. It is very, very common for a baby to eat a ton one day, 3 jars of food. The next day, 3 bites, and they're done. That is normal. One of the best pieces of advice I got from a nutritionist when I was working in early intervention was to encourage parents to not look at a day or a meal a day. Look at the whole week as a big picture of how much your baby is actually eating. Because they might eat a ton one day and not eat very much the next day. They might eat a lot at breakfast time and not want anything at lunch or at dinner. Because let's remember, they are still getting a ton of their calories from milk or formula. That's a meal. So this extra food, this solid food that you're giving them is bonus. So we're not looking at quantity, and don't get stuck on they ate this much yesterday, that's how much they should eat today, because you'll get frustrated and your baby will get frustrated. Babies know how much they need to eat and when they are full. You might think you know, but you're not in their body. So respect their cues when they're telling you, I'm done, and move on. Final note about spoon feeding is obviously you need to have a spoon that fits into your baby's mouth. Sounds simple, right? But there are so many spoons on the market, and there's probably more that I don't even know about right now. But some of my favorites that I used with clients whenever we would do spoon feeding is this one. It's called a maroon spoon. I think this is from Equipment Shop, so it's kind of like a therapy spoon. I don't know. But the specific spoon is not important. What I'm showing you is the bowl of the spoon is really flat. It's not a deep spoon at all. And also, look how narrow that is. So little baby who has a tiny mouth, this is gonna fit nicely and they're not gonna get a ton of food on it, which is what we want when they're first learning. We don't wanna give something like this one that is deeper. You fit more food on there. And also look how wide the top of this is. That baby is gonna have a hard time fitting that in their mouth. So your spoon should be narrow. This is another good one. These are the Gerber ones that you can get at Walmart, wherever. It's shallow and it's narrow. So that's gonna fit right in your baby's mouth. Super simple. There are a ton of kid spoons. This is a kid spoon. It's not appropriate for a baby. It's too long, it's too deep, and it's too wide. So when it comes to picking a spoon to start feeding with, look for small and narrow. You're not trying to load up the spoon. You're giving them small amounts. Again, it's experience, it's learning, it's not quantity. Okay, chugging right along. We're moving on to table food tips. I've already mentioned the book that I used for baby-led weaning, but if you're taking that route or you're going right to table food, the most important piece of advice that you need to remember: if a baby cannot pick up a piece of food in their hand, they cannot manage it in their mouth. Moving food around in your mouth is a fine motor skill, and a great indicator of how well they will move food up here is how well they will move it in their hand. If they can't pick it up, they can't eat it. If they can't pick it up, don't pick it up for them and put it in their mouth, because they're not managing it with their hands. They are not going to manage it with their mouth. A lot of people think Cheerio is a great first food because it's small, it has the hole in it, they're not gonna choke on it, but think about it. A baby cannot pick up a Cheerio nicely and get it into their mouth at the time when they are most likely to be presented with it. In order to be successful with eating a Cheerio, you have to be able to take it from your tongue, move it over to your gums, or mash it on the top of your mouth, which is gonna be hard because it doesn't melt very easily. So they have to move it, then get it back to their tongue and swallow it. That is a lot of work that a baby who cannot pick it up one at a time and put it in there is not gonna be able to do. So first foods, if you're going the table food route, is something that is stick-shaped that they can't bite pieces off of. So my son's first food was a pizza crust. You might think I'm crazy, but he could pick it up, munch on it, nothing was gonna come off because he did not have the strength to do that, and it wasn't going to dissolve and fall apart in the time that he had it in his mouth. So he picked it up this way because that's how he could hold it, and he munched on it in his mouth like this. He could take it out when he wanted and put it in when he wanted. A Cheerio, if I had given him that, he couldn't pick it up. If I put it in his mouth, he had no safe way to move it out. So if they can't pick it up, don't put it in their mouth for them because they can't move it around. All right, so feeding your child with confidence. It is equally on what your baby can do and how you approach the mealtime. If you're going into it stressed, your baby is going to be stressed. If you go into it calm and ready, your baby is going to be calm and ready. However, there are times when babies need a little bit more help. Let's say you've been spoon feeding for weeks, you've tried different spoons, you've tried different flavors, you've tried a whole bunch of things, and they are still gagging. We're starting to regress, not wanting to eat at all. I don't want to give you a time frame because that's kind of tricky. It might take 10, 20, 50 presentations of food before a child actually is like, yep, this is good, I'm gonna eat it every day. Lots of re-presentations are needed. So I don't wanna say, give it a week, give it a month. There could be something else that is preventing your baby from moving forward. It's worth talking to your pediatrician or looking into early intervention, calling an OT, seeing if they can evaluate. Maybe your child has a tongue tie that wasn't diagnosed before, so they can't move food around in their mouth. Maybe they are very sensitive because they didn't mouth toys. We talked about that before. Usually, in really young babies, you're not gonna see a hypersensitive gag because of sensory issues. You might, but generally, more often, you're gonna see a hypersensitive gag and trouble feeding because the child doesn't have the oral motor skills that they need. So a professional would be able to give you steps on how to build that skill, probably not even through food. It might be through core work, through playing with their hands, because remember, that affects how you move things in your mouth. So if you're not progressing and you've tried different things and you're really frustrated and your child is just not getting it, there is no harm in calling for an early intervention evaluation or outpatient OT and trying to see if something else is going on. In my motor milestones video, I have a checklist guide kind of thing that talks about how to talk to your doctor about concerns. That one is specific to motor skills, but if you are worried about your child's feeding, a lot of that stuff could still apply to how you go about talking to your doctor, what you need to say, and what the next steps would be. So I hope that this video was helpful for you. If you liked it, give it a thumbs up and subscribe, hit the bell. Finally, there are links down there for my Instagram and my Facebook page, so check them out, and I'll see you guys later.